Welcome to the second season of In the Telling, a monthly podcast about the global Black family experience. I'm Miranda.
And I'm Steven, and we're the founders of the Nomadic Archivist Project.
Before we begin this episode, we would like to take a moment to announce the winner of the second annual NAP Scholarship.
Killian Kwame Onai will be using the award to help finance his community archival project, the Lipke Traditional Area Community Archives, in Lipke, Kofo-Ri-Dua, which is in northern Ghana.
We would like to welcome Cheryl Boyce-Taylor to the show today. Cheryl is an immigrant poet and teaching artist born in Trinidad and raised in Queens, New York, and she's the author of 5 collections of poetry. Her most recent collection is a verse memoir, Phife Represents, about her son, hip-hop legend, Phife Dawg of a tribe called West, a.k.a. Malik Taylor. It is a love letter from a poet and mother who suddenly loses her son to type 1 diabetes. It is a story of loss, love, and courage. Cheryl's work has appeared in Rolling Stones magazine, Poetry, Prairie Schooner, and the Chicago Review of Books. She holds an MFA in creative writing and poetry from Stonecoast, the University of Southern Maine. Welcome to In the Telling, Cheryl. It is so nice to have you with us here.
Thank you. It's so gratifying to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, I'm so happy that you're here, Cheryl. I met you in 2003, and you and I was doing a profile of you for Lambda Literary Report, and we had lunch, and we were walking and talking, and it was a sunny day, and it was one of my favorite days because I got to meet Cheryl Boyce-Taylor. I was very happy. And I've seen you through various incarnations over the years through your books and through your work. And 2 years later, in 2005, I published your third book of poetry, Convincing the Body. And you're the very first poet and my very first writer on the Vintage Entity Press publishing in print. And I just really want to thank you for that because it was an honor to work with you.
Thank you.
And so, I'm glad you're here. I've heard stories about your family over the years, your mom, your brother, and your son, and your partner. And so it's good to have you here to talk a little bit about them today.
Thank you, Stephen. You mean a lot to me, and our friendship, whether we see each other every day or once a year, it always picks back up. Doesn't even pick up, it just continues from that point. So, we named each other's twin that day, that first day as we walked along.
Yes.
And I told you that I had a twin brother, but your energy and your spirit felt like his. Mm-hmm. And so we have kept that up, and it's just my pleasure to be here doing this work with you.
Family podcast, family stories. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So to get us started, Cheryl, can you speak a bit about your migration experience, when and why you came to the U.S. and at what age? Also, what were your thoughts and feelings during that time?
Okay, this is where I'd like to start with that poem that begins my journey. And I've only recently written it, but I've written it in different incarnations and different words. And this one is called Immigrant Dreams. And I wrote this maybe about 2 months ago in looking back. Mommy packs my bags with all her best things. Her Holy Bible, red leather with initials embossed in silver ink. A gold chain from my father with earrings to match. Pink frilly socks and purse I got from Tanji Werner for my 10th birthday, but never wore. Save the new things for America, they say with laugh and pride. Say the new things. You're 13 now? A teenager? We saving it for then. On the morning that I get ready to leave, we rise at 5 a.m., ready for our holy pilgrimage. USA. I narrow my eyes to squeeze out the light. Mommy, there are machine guns going off in my throat. Never mind that. Be grateful. Be happy. How can I stop this incessant ringing in my ear? How shall I scold myself? Do I say shame? Shame for believing in this country or for believing in mommy's dreams? So I leave Trinidad at age 13 to come to live with my mother's sister. I don't really know her very well. We see her on vacation when she visits us, but I don't know her all that well. But my mom was supposed to come to New York with me, and on the last minute, the immigration said that she was a nursery school teacher. And on the last day when we went to pick up the visas, they said they weren't going to give her one because she was needed in the country
Oh, wow.
for that early childhood education.
Mm-hmm.
So what do? You know, in those years, you didn't fight with the U.S. immigration. They've always been so big.
Yeah.
You didn't fight with them. So my mom had a choice. They told her, and my brother was scheduled to come with us too. So they said only one can go. So my mom decided to send me because my brother was older and could take care of himself there. But she really trusted her sister because they were both Seventh-day Adventists.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So she sends me to her sister.
And what was that like getting on the plane by yourself when you thought you were going with your family?
Well, I was terribly broken because my mother passed out in church the day before I left. She just fell out, passed out, and they took her to the hospital in the city, a couple of miles from where we live. And nobody knew what was wrong with her. So my uncle took me to the hospital that morning to say goodbye to my mother. And speaking about that, I still get that lump in my throat and that pain all over leaving my mom in the hospital. So it was very hard. And I wasn't a mature 13. They didn't allow you to be mature.
Right.
Oh.
You know, I was tied to my mother's apron strings.
Right.
And so you always did what your mother said anyway in those years.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to see my mother, and my uncle took me to the airport where my dad was there and the rest of my family. And I said goodbye to them and headed off to New York. But I remember when my mom passed away in 2010, I was just so broken. It was the same feeling. And one day one morning, getting ready for work, I was in the shower and I heard my mother say, "I don't know why you're so broken." She said, I set this up for you when you were 13 and left me by yourself. Focus on that. You've always been by yourself like a little woman.
Yeah.
I heard my mother's voice saying that. She said, "Stop. You have to continue. You have to keep going." And, but yeah, that was the hardest feeling. But coming to New York, it started me writing because I would write my mother letters every day begging to come back home. It was a really, really difficult time. But as I realized, it would set me up for the strength later, even the strength now at losing my son. And that's not to say that I don't express my emotions or feel sorrow or sadness, but what I've learned is the way forward.
Right.
What I love are the 2 lines. I love the whole poem, by the way, but the 2 lines that stuck with me are "say the new things for America" and "believing in my mother's dream." You know, and so that moment in the shower when you're hearing her, I feel like, wow, she set this up for you. What you just
Yes. Yes,
and
did.
I was thinking about this caretaking sensibility that I've always experienced with you at heart through your words and your actions, your poetry, obviously. In an email exchange, you shared that you were caretaking for your mom at one point and your son at a distance and your own health, among other things. when did you begin taking care of your mom? And can you talk a little bit about what that experience was like?
Yeah. My mom was pretty independent. She was never married. And although she lived with family, but she was always the mother to her two children and very independent, making all her decisions alone, savings, all of those things were the things that she did alone. And so in 2006, she died at 85. So I guess maybe she was like 79 or 80, something like that, in 2006. And she was not doing well. She was forgetting everything. She was putting I went to her house one day and she had all the brushes, her hair brushes in a little case in the refrigerator.
Okay. Okay.
And the toiletries, toilet paper, soap and everything sitting nicely on top of the counter. So I could laugh now, but I was
Yeah.
wrecked,
Right.
Mhm.
So I discussed it with my kind of partner because we weren't together at that time. And she told me, she said, and my mom was living in our house. My mom and I had a house in Queens. And she told me, I think it's time for you to get rid of the house and bring your mother to live with you.
Okay.
So I found an apartment in Harlem,
Hmm.
got rid of my mother's in my house, and brought my mother to live with me. Now, I had gotten married when I was 19. So I had been living away from my mother all of that time. So we loved, we shared, I visited her, but we really didn't know each other because I had become a different woman.
Hmm.
And so it was a little difficult living with her. She was jealous of friendships that I had. Anybody who visited me, she wasn't so happy. And one day I was having like a little reading in the apartment I shared with my mother. And she stood at the window looking out and she said, I've never seen a girl with so many friends. So many friends. I hope they're real.
Okay.
Wow.
So she was always giving me digs like that in that period of time that she lived with me. Comparing her daughter-in-law, her son's wife, to my daughter-in-law.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And the root of it was I would travel to Atlanta and California to help out Malik.
Hmm.
Because Keisha, his wife, worked full time. So on the times when he was ill, just coming out of the hospital, I mean, he was always working, traveling. He had his hospital stays as well.
Hmm.
So when I would travel to help her with him, my mother would be mad because she said, you have your mother, I need your help.
Okay.
Mm,
And so she sometimes pretended to be worse off than she was.
right.
She had tricks, let me tell you. Yeah. So
You talked about your mother being very independent. Did that independence also come with um, a little bit of isolation? Was she lonely? Was that why that she was sort of reacting in that way?
yes, there was some isolation, but the house in Queens was a two-family, and my brother lived on the second floor.
Okay.
And often he would not even knock on her door to say hello. And that really hurt her. So while she was sharing the home with her son, he was not really taking care of her. And so for a while, she had been wanting more attention from the two of us.
Right.
I lived in Brooklyn. I would go out and spend time with her. But I worked in Manhattan and I worked in Brooklyn. It was just getting harder and harder. And the truth was, I was getting older.
Yeah.
And so the kind of running I had done before, I really couldn't do so much anymore. Or I was trying to make sure that I saved some energy because I am also a type 1 diabetic. At that time, it was for like over 40 years.
Okay.
So my health was changing quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so the care that she needed, I needed to put some of that care in myself.
So, mm-hmm.
Right. You were juggling a lot. Your own health, your mother's, your son's.
And I was in school full time for my MFA.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, you were. I remember. Yep.
Cheryl, you talked a little bit about your son, Malik, who's also known as Phife, one of the founding members of the Tribe Called Quest. And you talked a little bit about his illness, his diabetes, and that you would go back and forth from New York, and I guess he was living in both California and Atlanta, right?
Well, he was living in Atlanta for a long time. And then when he got in 2004, he got really ill. And he went to live in California with his wife. They weren't married yet. But when he got really sick, I told him, okay, from the time you're 16, I've let you travel and do whatever you want to. But now you're getting sick in this backwoods Atlanta and you're not calling me. I said, we're done with that. I told him this in the hospital.
Yo,
We're done with that.
we're done.
I'm coming home. That's it. And so 2 days later, he said, no, Mom, Disha wants me to come to California with her. And that was fine.
How were you able to provide that support long distance?
Oh, we spoke on the phone all the time. Sometimes he would call me and I would know he was not well. I think that's something a mother generally does know. And he'll be, no, I'm fine. I'd be on the next plane that morning.
Okay.
I did that is and job, it didn't matter. I'd call in sick for a couple of days, I'd be there taking care of them. Or just spending time with him because he was also very independent.
Mm-hmm.
But he was really struggling and he was doing peritoneal dialysis, which is a type of dialysis you do at home with 4 exchanges each day.
Okay.
And he selected that one because he said, I'm going on the road. I don't care what I have to do. So he had been doing that for a while. And I do feel that the peritoneal dialysis, all those exchanges and being on the road, often not eating well, I believe that is what broke his body down faster.
I see.
Yeah, because when he started the dialysis where you go to the hospital or the dialysis clinic 3 times a week,
Mm-hmm.
you could see he became stronger.
Okay.
You could see physically he was stronger.
Mm-hmm.
So that was very hard for him, but it was what he selected
Mm-hmm.
to do.
You know, being on the road and continuing his work was really important for him.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. He said, oh no, nobody's taking away this that I've worked so hard for. Nothing.
Right.
And throughout all of that, you were helping to take care of him sometimes long distance, short distance, and your mom.
Yes.
Let's talk about your health. How were you dealing with both, taking care of yourself during this time?
During this time, I was taking good care of myself. The one thing is I've been a type 1 diabetic for about 50 years, and I've only been hospitalized once when it was discovered. Now, I did have my years of cheating and having cake and having drinks and those things, of course. But I learned early when to stop.
Yeah.
I have a glass of wine, I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
So or if I want to have a glass of wine, I'm not having that spaghetti.
Right.
So you have to learn how to trade those things off.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say I have had my years, especially the last 10 years, when it is just difficult
Mm-hmm.
to manage my diabetes as I'm getting older. But that was how I managed it, through diet, and I wish I could say exercise. because that's what my doctor wants me to say.
Yeah.
But through diet and keeping busy and having goals and my writing, certainly,
Oh, yeah.
you know. And Sini's love, definitely.
Sini, your lovely partner.
Sini, my lovely partner of 24 years.
Wow, congratulations.
Quarter of the century.
That's pretty amazing. You mentioned that you had two other poems that you wanted to share with us today.
Yes. And this is just more of an anecdote from the. It's in Mama Phife Represents. Once when Malik was 4, his grandmother left 35 cents for him to buy ice cream. When the ice cream truck rolled around, he was already in bed. But knowing how much he loved music, all kinds of music, even the ice cream truck music, I called him out of bed to see the truck. He wanted to go out and get some ice cream, but it was already late and past his bedtime. When the truck left, he stalked into his room angry. I called out to him asking for my goodnight hug. He did not answer. I called him again. Still no answer. Finally, I said to him sternly, "Get in here." "Did you hear Mommy saying goodnight to you?" He said, "Yes. But I don't speak to people who don't stop ice cream trucks. My grandmother left money for my ice cream, and you let the truck go." I was stunned. The only thing I could do was hug him and send him to bed. And this is a little precocious boy that whenever I want to smile, like after he passed away, I really kept thinking about all those little anecdotes and stories and things we used to do at 3 and 4 and 5 that made me just fall in love with his spirit.
Yeah.
Because I could never say something like that to my mother. And Walter and I knew that we did not want to kill that part of him.
Yes.
At all.
And I just want to say that Phife Represents is available from Haymaker Books.
Haymarket
Books, excuse me. We'll put a link actually in the show notes so people can order it.
So this spirit from this child is what taught me so much about my own spirit and recouping my own spirit, because I had been brought up in the children should be seen and not heard era.
Right.
With parents that loved you, but they were very punitive because that's how they had been treated.
Right.
So you can't give something that you don't have. So I just loved his spirit, and it helped me, and it helps me to today. So I have a lot of anecdotes like this in the book. It's what lifted me. And then the other short piece that I wrote for my mother was after she passed away. She passed away in 2010. I wrote this in 2013. "Dear Mom, happy birthday to you. Your birthday was always a special day for me. I would always buy you flowers and clothing and some new dessert. Remember the time I bought you Astromarias with dusty rose? With the Astromarias with the huge white petals and the peachy apricot center. I learned later that they were called Pacific Sunset Hybrids. You loved them so much, they became your favorite flower. You also loved sunflowers and dahlias and roses. I've just returned from the Brooklyn Promenade. Today, I bought you butter yellow carnation buds and a pink grapefruit. It was my plan to celebrate your birthday by sending them to you via the Hudson River. When I arrived at the promenade, I realized that there was nothing but the DQE below, and the water was too far away to toss my gifts. So I sat in the sun for hours, Mom, admiring nature and feeling close to you and the vast Manhattan skyline. I am back home now, and I'm getting ready to make mac and cheese for our dinner. Sini is still my girlfriend, and I live with her now, Mom. Would you believe that?
I love it.
How she's always showed up in my life.
I see. When I read your poetry, when I hear your poetry, there are two different experiences. One, I experience it when you're reading it. I saw the Hudson River. I saw what you bought, the grapefruit and the flowers, and you sitting there for hours, admiring nature and feeling closer to your mom, the woman whose dream you dare to dream, to live out. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Right. Yeah. So writing books and traveling and performing are seem very essential aspects to your day-to-day life. What made being a writer essential to managing your life?
My mom, again, always loved poetry. And in Trinidad, it was part of the school curriculum, a very important part. And I remember, and it was even in my school years too. I remember that they would take us out on Tuesday afternoon, right after lunch, like 1 o'clock or so. We would sit under the trees, and you had been previously given a poem to memorize. We would sit under the tree, and each child would perform their poem. And my mom had the same thing when she was a child. So my mom memorized long poems and recited them, but she didn't write her own. But she read poems to myself and Malik at bedtime. And so the act of memorizing and reading out loud and later writing has always been one of the things that sustained me the most. And so when I left my mom in Trinidad, again, letter writing. I wasn't writing poems yet, but those letters was what I feel really connected me to her and helped me to hold on to my Trinidad, which still always appears in my work. The fruits, the trees, the colors, the flowers, all I could actually smell and taste them. And so that has always taken me through my life, through sadness, through joy, through anticipation and dreams and building dreams. It has always been my writing. And when I lost Malik and I felt so shattered and not present in the world, it was also writing that brought me back to my center, to my dreams, and to help me to move forward. So yes, writing has always been the source. I mean, some people have dancing, they have acting, whatever, singing.
Right.
My life source and has been writing. Oh, I don't know if that answers your question.
No,
It does.
it does.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when I was working and I would take off time to travel with Evidence Dance Company. Leave the job, I'd be on tour with Ron Brown. It was always writing that held me through all of those times. The travels, the performing, writing through my health even, writing about my health, being mad at my pancreas and writing about it in that way. So,
Right.
I just feel like I feel speechless in a way because you answer questions so fully. They're like reading, you're like, making poems out of the answers you're giving us in this conversation. And did you want to read one more poem before we close out?
yes, I'll read one more poem from the book.
Okay.
And it's called Still the Sweetest Words I've Ever Heard. And these are just things that Malik called to say to me at different times. Or things he said to me even when he was very young. Happy Mother's Day, Mom. I made this picture for you. Mom, Grandma is my bestest friend ever. Mom, I'm coming home for your birthday. The album went gold. Be my date for the Grammys, Mom. I found my girl. She reminds me of you, Mom. Her name is Disha. We have a son. His name is David. Mom, I love that little guy. Happy birthday, Mommy. Thank you so much for my laptop. It is the best birthday present you ever gave me. I have been at home all weekend writing and making music. I swear I'll never leave the house again. Big ups, sister. Mom, I'm so happy. I'm so happy. I'm getting married. Will you walk me down the aisle? Mom, I love you. Go on tour with me. You and Sini, move to California with me. You're getting kind of old. But I mean good old.
That was amazing. That was really lovely.
Thank you. Thank you.
I love the fact that you claimed all these moments, and put them in this work. Because when I read it, I cried as well. Yeah, it's quite touching.
Thank you.
And I can hear him in like all of it. I feel like in all of his ages saying this to you, and then also feeling it from
That's what I wanted. Yeah.
yeah.
It floats through time. And that his grandmother was his bestest friend ever.
Yeah.
So sweet. Yeah. Of course, if he lived in New York, we would have our fight day.
Right.
Yes.
But one of the things was that he was away so much. And so everything was precious. Every phone call was precious. Every text, every letter.
Right. Cheryl, thank you again for taking the time to talk and share with us today. It's
Really
been wonderful to just hear from you, to hear you read your poems. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you both so much. I really appreciate talking with you. It's made my day.